Welcome to Galactic Goddess TV. This is Radhaa, and it's been a while since my last podcast, and I'm so glad to be back. Life has really taken some unexpected turns, especially with a recent quote unquote natural disaster here in the Carolinas, which left my entire town washed away. And so today I'm here being joined with a dear friend and community leader, Kory Muniz. For over 40 years, Kory has been an independent medical researcher and educator, passionately guiding our community on vital health and societal issues. And, today we're going to be diving into an open, unscripted conversation about what happened here in the Carolinas. Exploring these topics with an open mind and heart is really essential, and asking questions that can lead us closer to understanding the bigger picture. And also, when did asking questions become something to avoid? It's only through our curiosity that we can uncover the truths that we seek. So I want to just dive right in and see where this conversation takes us. So please listen with an open heart, an open mind, with love and respect for life being the dominant filter when taking in what's being shared. Welcome, Kory.
Thank you. I'm so privileged to be here with you, Radhaa.
You as well. I'm so excited to have this conversation today with you.
Well, I'm excited to, first of all, I'm really happy to hear you because there were days where I could not get a hold of you. And quite frankly, I was terrified that you might have been swept away, to put it quite bluntly. And the joy and jubilation that I felt when I, did hear back from you, just a sigh of relief. So it's so good to be here with you. And I can't wait to hear what you have to share since you are boots on the ground.
Thank you. Yeah, it was quite concerning, not having any ability to access the outside world. And it was so fascinating. And actually, it was actually interesting how that happened because it was when the storm, quote unquote, officially started, all of a sudden, it wasn't just Wi-Fi because we had the Wi-Fi off for some time before that, but it was the phone communication. Like we just couldn't access anything. It was just shut off. Like you couldn't even call 911. So I thought that was pretty pretty alarming.
That had to have been scary.
Mm-hmm. It was scary. Luckily for me, I felt like I was up above the river, so I was kind of, experiencing other people, their pain, their suffering of losing their homes, losing their lives, losing their family members. And, none of us, like we couldn't be of any help even if we wanted to. So that was the scary part, is that there was, of course, no feeling of control, communication, or help. And it was very, very isolating.
Well, what made you feel like you couldn't have been any help?
Because the houses that were by the river were suddenly, and I mean suddenly, swept away. And the people who were left, who were ejected, let's put it that way, from their homes by the river, they were ejected. I don't know how, through the windows, what not, but they were ejected as the houses were rushed downstream. Some people were ejected. They were, and I don't even know how that works, but they were on top of the trees. And it's pretty wild to think they were on top of the trees alive. Some of them were alive. And so
Wow.
some of them were, crying for help. They were crying for help for up to 8 hours. They were clinging, maybe they were on a branch, they were clinging to dear life. But they couldn't hold out.
Mhm.
There are so many stories down here with the people about what's happened and how they had to stand by the riverbanks, and I mean not outside of the riverbanks, above, and watch, they could only, for hours, 8 hours, they could only cry because their families were in the trees begging, crying for life. They went to the firefighters
Mm-hmm.
men to get some help because they have those ladders, and they were they were told no, we can't help you right now. We can't endanger ourselves because we may be needed later on. So we're just gonna have to sacrifice, your family, as a loss.
That's hard to imagine.
It's hard to imagine. It's hard to imagine the pain people felt because it wasn't an instant death for many people. People were
Mm-hmm.
they were trapped under debris. They were trapped in mud. Um, there was one instance where a man, his whole family got, like, the mud just took them all under, but his family was underneath him. They were trapped. He was trapped to his neck, but his family was still alive underneath him, and they were holding on to him, his ankles or whatever. And, he had to be trapped for days, and they
Mm-hmm.
died. And so when the help finally came, uh they were like, oh, gonna dig him out. He said, don't bother. And they said, well, why? And he said, because, for days and days I felt my family, like touching my ankle, touching me, and they were crying and crying, but they stopped. I don't want to go on because everything I love has died.
I think the saddest realization for me in hearing all this and knowing that someone that I love dearly, you, um, could have been a part of that is we pay so much taxes in this country
Hmm.
for these people who sign up to be there to rescue us and then they don't show up, and it makes me question, where is this money going? And I think this is a time to literally question everything,
Oh yeah.
and and to start connecting dots. Why don't we have a large enough firefighting team or emergency team everywhere in the United States that these things can be rectified? Why don't, if we have run throughs on pandemics a year before they create them, why don't we have run throughs on massive fires or massive floods to know exactly how to handle these things? This is 2024. We're not back in 1524.
Well, they can,
It just
yeah, they
it
can
blows
manage.
my mind. It blows
It
my
is.
mind, Rana.
It is mind blowing, especially with technology. It's like AI is all up in every email, every text. Like, they have permissions to access everything and know more about us. They now have drones where they go over your house, take pictures, and decide if they want to kick you off of the insurance policies. And, there's mass surveillance. They have more, they know exactly what's going on at all times. And the thing
Yeah,
is, people were stranded for not just a day or 2 days or 3 days or 4 days or 5 days or six
yeah.
days. It was 7 days. And in some cases, like in Chimney Rock, they were I just saw a man that went out there, and it was October 19th, and nobody had been out to visit people. They lost everything, and they were like camped out, and they were just in really bad shape. And he was like, it smells like death, because there is death. People
Mm-hmm.
under the mud, and many people were, no, basically nobody got the help. We never got the help we needed. If we were in a 911 situation, I can guarantee you there would be nobody here. Nobody here. And it really feels like one of those situations where, the phone was turned off. Like you can't just say, oh, it's the winds. We've had winds here every year. winds
Mm-hmm.
that do blow down the bamboo sometimes, a few pieces. This was no different. I'm telling you on my life, the
Yeah.
winds were no different than any other time. And it was not the hurricane that created, or let's just ask the question, was it the hurricane that created it? Because if it was, every tree would be blown away in this forest. But no, there was only one large tree that fell that was like hundreds of years old, that, as tall as the sky, that fell on our um studio, but that's it. There was nothing else touched out. You know what I'm saying? It was
Mm-hmm.
water, and it was the dam, and it was the dams that they knew for 20 years. They had already been informed that these dams could not handle that it was going to break at any time if there wasn't too much pressure. The
Mm-hmm.
you know they knew this. This was been going on for 20 years. People have been saying, hey, the dam is having cracks. It's going to break. I mean, there's nothing in this whole universe. No hurricane created washed away all of these houses. And maybe I can say in a question, is it possible that the hurricane could have actually washed away these houses? Because the wind didn't. The wind did not. Nothing has been
Well,
nothing nothing was overturned from the wind. Okay.
yeah. Well, let me ask you a question,
Mm-hmm.
because I have a background in educating on weather warfare or
Mm-hmm.
geoengineering.
Mm-hmm.
I was actually involved in a documentary a few years back, working with Michael Murphy. I had met him in 2012 when he had just put out What in the World Are They Spraying? And
Mm-hmm.
he asked me to talk a little bit on weather warfare and genetic modified seeds and how they tied in and what was going on with our air and our water. And so he put me in to discuss that into his second documentary called Why in the World Are They Spraying?
Mm-hmm.
And people haven't seen those. They're free. You can look it up and find them. I highly suggest that you watch it. And one of the things that I learned that kind of blew my mind, Radha, was that our weather is traded on the mercantile stock exchange.
Wow. Really?
Yeah, yeah. It's been used for a long time. It's been used in actual warfare. That's how they flooded the Ho Chi Minh Trail
Could you give a
during
little,
the Vietnam
people
War.
that don't know, maybe you could share a little bit about that.
Well, during Vietnam, they felt that if they created more rain than normal, they would have a little bit of an advantage over the home team, which were the Vietnamese soldiers. So they actually flooded an area. And if you are a farmer, you know about weather control because they've been seeding clouds for a very long time. They can give a certain section of the country more water to grow their crops, and they can create a drought as well.
Mm-hmm.
And there are patents on these things. You can look them up. There are military patents through the Department of Defense with weather control. And so to say that this is not happening, first of all, look up. When you see those, what I call crisscross applesauce in the sky, and if you actually take the time, stop looking at your phone and texting and look up and watch that line, it will turn into a cloud.
Mm-hmm.
And I know when I was a little girl, I used to lay on my front lawn and I used to watch the clouds move. And oh, there's an elephant. Oh, there, that looks like a chicken. And the clouds would move. In California, where I'm at, they don't move anymore. We very rarely have a blue sky. We have this silver, light, bluish gray blah that is always in the air. And they are starting to have been putting chemtrails in children's cartoons and things and going back and placing them in old videos and things so that people think that these are what's called line clouds. This is what they're putting in the books. And it's just ridiculous. We have to use our memory and go back and think, What did we used to see when we were younger? The young kids can't do that because this is what they know now, just like they've never known life without a computer. I was my parents' remote control. You know, Kory, get up and turn the channel. You know, it doesn't take that many generations to make people see that what they're telling you is normal because that's all you know. And they know this. There's a gentleman that I really highly suggest everybody look up. His name is Edward Bernays. They call him the father of propaganda. He just happened to be Sigmund Freud's nephew. And what he did was he studied Sigmund Freud's papers on how the brain works and what motivates the brain. And then he went and found ways to utilize that to sell things. Now, he actually had a theory, and that theory was the masses are driven by factors outside of their conscious understanding, and therefore their minds can and should be manipulated by a capable few. Now, I want you to sit with that for a second, Radhaa, because we went through several years of being told that we should not do our own research.
Mm-hmm.
We should look towards and listen to a capable few.
Mm-hmm.
Through what we're living through right now at this time, this, you know, pre-election, we're being taught there are capable few that you need to look up to. Celebrities, those are the people that know. I was in the entertainment industry for a long time, as were you.
Mm-hmm.
There are wonderful people in the business, but they're not always the smartest tools in the shed.
Yeah.
So, you know, there's a bigger take on what's going on than just the Carolinas, Florida, Maui, Northern California, all of these disasters that, yes, we have fires. Yes, you have rain. Yes, you have wind, but they are making it worse with technology. And they're doing this to create a narrative of fear, which when you are in fear, you are in the sympathetic nervous system, which is your fight or flight. When you're in fight or flight, you don't think, you look to mommy and daddy to tell you what to do.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm trying to give you some dots here and give your listeners some dots. You can balk at it and you can say, oh, it's BS. And you can say, and once you say it's a conspiracy theory, you're labeling yourself, in my opinion, as being ignorant and willfully ignorant. Because that term was coined to stop people from doing their own research. Because if you're going to be labeled something that sounds negative, you don't want your friends to turn against you. You don't want your family to think you're crazy. Am I making sense here?
Yeah, I mean, there is this like herd mentality of to not question any narrative. Like I'm in all of the groups. I'm in all of the groups in this area for Asheville and surrounding areas. And you know, they get furious if anybody says anything that questions the narrative that they have as a collective, you know, that this was simply a bad weather and that's it. They
Right.
actually they get angry, they get vicious, the teeth come out, you know, the fangs come out. They're like, how dare you? This is so insensitive. No, it's you know what's insensitive? It's
People
insensitive.
dying. Yeah.
People dying, yes. And what's insensitive is not questioning why this happened. That's insensitive. That's ignorance at its finest.
Well,
And
let's question for a second, Radhaa, why they might react that way.
okay.
And could it be that if they took a second to even try and believe that, that's a much scarier scenario and much harder to wrap your brain around our own government, or people in our government are listening to people outside of the government that are purposely allowing this to happen? Isn't that scarier than Mother Nature?
Mm-hmm.
So I can kind of understand to a certain point why people would get defensive. because we're fearful of what we don't understand.
But why? Why should we? I mean, yeah, that's true. I get that.
Because we can't, I can say, Mother Nature just caused this storm and nothing I can do about it. But if it's politicians, I
Mm-hmm.
can do something about that. And then I have to.
Mm-hmm.
And that puts me in a position where I might not be liked.
Yeah, well, truth tellers are never. They're never going to be popular. The truth is never going to be popular. But, you know, at this point, I think it's more important to be aware rather than being liked because if everybody's, I mean, look what happened here. We would rather be aware. We would rather know because when we know, we can voice ourselves. We can say no, we don't consent, we don't agree.
Exactly.
We need to have laws and regulations over HAARP and CERN. We the people are paying for this, so what the heck? We have to have a say. You don't just get to. This is not. This is not a democracy.
Well, we're not a democracy. We are a republic.
Mm-hmm.
And democracy, it depends on how you frame that word, because the way they're framing it now is it's only democratic if everybody thinks the same way. And because we are a very diverse country and because we do come from all different kinds of backgrounds, we don't all think the same. And personally, that's what I think makes the United States different and what makes it exciting.
Yeah.
I don't want to be in a bubble. I don't want to be around people that all think exactly like I do because number one, that's boring. I already know how I think. I want to know what you think, what you see, what makes you that wonderful, beautiful soul that God put here to enhance the planet and everyone on it and everyone around you every day as they come across you. What makes you different? Not what makes us the same. That's obvious. We all live, we all breathe, we all have blood. We all want to be loved. But, I want to bring up too something that's very interesting that people ignore. I hope this is okay with you, Radha.
Mm-hmm.
With everything involving all these natural disasters, quote unquote, we hear the same names: Blackwater, Vanguard, State Street. They just happen to be there, just happen to be trying to get contracts in these areas to do things like mine lithium. So tell me, what do you know and what have you heard there about the possibility of contracts for lithium mining?
Say that again.
What have you heard
Mm-hmm.
in regards to possible
Oh, yeah.
contract for
Uh,
lithium?
there's a lot. So I understand that there's $90 million that is dedicated. I mean, there's $120 billion dedicated to harvesting the resources that was just passed September 20th of this year. Very, very close to the storm. And you know, it's shocking. So the Biden-Harris administration announced a staggering commitment of over 120 billion to harvest, critical minerals, particularly lithium, and from our beloved mountains. And this investment is cloaked as a step towards strengthening the U.S. Critical mineral supply chain. And also it's a plan that is inviting a lot of catastrophe here because we're jeopardizing not just the local ecosystems but also the health and the rights of our neighborhood and families. We know how dirty this can be, and this affects our water contamination, water shortages. In Asheville right now, people can't drink the water. It is like black and yellow, and it's full of chemicals, and it's people are taking showers. Some people are having adverse reactions. People are
Hmm.
trying to be normal again, and some coffee shops have opened up that are supposed to be, triple filtered, but people are projectile vomiting. I've seen in the group so many people crying because they're like, they're going to the coffee shops trying to have some normalcy because the regulate, it's been lifted. Like it's been lifted that you can now use it. It's safe, but it's coming out black. It's coming out yellow. I finally went over to Whole Foods, which was completely empty almost in Asheville, and it was so depressing. And I used the restroom and the water was like a black, color. And I was like, what the heck? And then there was a sign, don't wash your hands because it's not safe. It's not safe.
Well, the Flint water is not safe. How many years ago did that happen?
Exactly. Exactly. This is so bad. We're talking serious pollution and health risks because these minerals can unleash pollutants into the air. They can release it into the water. The chemicals they use to do this stuff is also it's also put into the environment.
Well, one thing that I question, because as you know, I have a big background in educating about
Yeah.
food and health, is that area has some of the most diverse different types of foods and herbs in the United States.
Oh yes. Oh
So
yes.
my thought was, who else would it help if these things no longer existed in that area? Like ginseng. Okay.
Yes. That's right.
It's my understanding that it's one of the places outside of Asia that ginseng is grown.
Mm-hmm.
And that is extremely helpful for a lot of different things. But if that's gone, then who makes money from that?
Mm-hmm. That's a great question to ask. Yeah, there's so many herbs. There's so many unique varieties because our soil is rich. I mean, I'm sitting on a landmine of gold of rich resources. Like I live on top of Crystal Mountain. I literally live on Crystal Mountain. I literally have crystals bursting from the earth, and I would never dare in a trillion years think I'm gonna harvest them because this is what makes this mountain special. It's the
Mm-hmm,
vibration of the mountain. It's not for consumption.
mm-hmm,
It's for holding that frequency. We're talking also, if you want to get on a spiritual note, this is also about frequency. It's just like the whales, it's just like the dolphins. They hold a very specific frequency that upholds a higher frequency on Earth. We can see the frequencies have lowered and degraded, and you can see it in people. Their consciousness has fallen to the very bottom, and it's like in 2024, it's shocking. You'd think we would rise in consciousness, but we're seeing a lowering of consciousness. You can hear it in the music, you can see it in the media. People are into all they care about is TikTok dancing. People just don't care about anything but being in the spotlight. Everybody is a narcissist. I mean, it's just the culture.
mm-hmm.
We're in the Kardashian dystopia culture. And
Yeah.
so,
Well, let me please, with all the love in my heart that I have for you, correct you on it's not everybody.
well, no, I agree with you. It's not everybody. I'm talking about mainstream. Let's just talk about,
Yeah, yeah,
I
but
mean,
so many people are falling away from that mainstream and their eyes are being awakened to that. So let's give that some credit.
absolutely. I don't mean everybody. I know that
I know.
equally there are people that are rising from this, but
Yeah.
if you look at the actual numbers, if you look at the real numbers for TikTok, it's staggering, and that's like one of the number one places where people go for entertainment. So I do want to give credit where credit is due. People are awakening. People are seeing. People are really truly, and I do want to acknowledge that. But I find it shocking the amount of those folks who are going down that route.
Yeah, yeah. And we
Although
don't, the thing is we need to have free speech, and free speech really only matters when someone's saying something you don't agree with.
Mhm.
That's where free speech comes in. And I was raised with the sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. And I think we need to get back to that and realize I can call you 400 bad things. It's not going to change who you are, especially if you're secure in yourself,
Mm.
which is where spirituality needs to live, in that space of, we know who we are, and get back to that, and get back to, I've known you for a very long time, so I'm going to listen to what you say. I'm not going to turn against you just because you happen to not like a song that I like, or not like a politician that I like, or not like whatever. It's
Yeah.
we need to stop this, allowing them to turn us against one another, because this is their plan. The UN has an agenda. It was called Agenda 21. And when they didn't get their agenda pushed through in 2021 like they wanted to, they reassigned it to Agenda 2030. And you can go and you can look at it, and it sounds really sweet and wonderful. And yay, we don't have to drive cars. Cars cause smog. Well, let me just say, there are politicians and actors and very well-known singers that have 2, 3 jets that are flying everywhere. That's more than my car for my whole lifetime. And we have to think about what the people that are telling us we should be doing are actually doing in their own lives. Like during the lockdown, who was actually getting their hair done when we weren't allowed to leave our house?
Good
You
point.
know,
Very
and
good point.
yeah, and so when you go and you look at these things like Agenda 2030, or you hear about 15-minute cities, I've talked with people in my community, young people, oh, it's going to be great. I don't have to go any further than 15 minutes. And then I say, but do your parents live more than 15 minutes away? Does your significant other live more than 15 minutes away? What would you do if you were told you could only see them once a year, and you have to follow rules to be able to get to do that?
Hmm.
Because that is where these 15-minute cities are leading. And what is pushing people into these 15-minute cities? Quote unquote, natural disasters.
Absolutely. And so I wanted to state that Asheville, there's been a lot of talk about Asheville being a 15-minute city, and it's a part of a larger urban planning trend, at reducing reliance on cars and increasing
Mhm.
essential services within 15 minutes or a bike ride, in case anybody hasn't heard about it. Um, and so Asheville's politicians, they have an interest in this model, and they're saying that it's going to create a more sustainable community-centered neighborhoods. And so that's already been kind of like on the table, that we haven't had it hasn't been quote unquote announced, but that has been known, that conversation's been out there for this
Yeah.
city of
Yeah,
Asheville.
and there are websites. I can't unfortunately tell you exactly what it is right now, but there are websites where you can look up if your city has signed on
Mhm.
to be a part of that initiative. And I'll bet you'll be shocked uh, to correlate that with cities that are having destruction.
Mhm.
Just as I was during the lockdown, and I saw a map as to where they were putting up 5G towers and what went live. The first city to go live with 5G was
Mhm.
Wuhan, China, at the end of 2019, where people were dropping dead in the middle of the street.
Whoa. I saw videos of that. I was like, what is that? That's crazy. I could not believe it. So why were they dropping dead? I mean, we probably can't say why, because look,
Well, 5G is a military tool,
Mm-hmm.
and it's 60 megahertz. 60 megahertz, it actually stops your body from being able to uptake oxygen.
Oof, that's brutal.
So what was happening with people during that time? They weren't able to breathe.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, knowing and being a researcher and seeing the military patents on these things, I knew in a minute that that's why people were having problems breathing.
Mm-hmm.
Just like when they came out with the loss of sense of taste and smell. Well, when you have a cold, you have loss of taste and smell. But they forced us somehow to forget what it felt like to have a cold before, or what the flu felt like. It was like none of us had ever experienced having achy, not being able to get out of bed and feeling like you were going to die.
Yeah.
And so, but they're doing the same thing with the weather. They are saying, oh, well, this is a unprecedented. No, that's correct. Things did not happen like this before. And it didn't just start happening. It just happened now. It's not like it got worse and worse and worse and worse and worse in your area, so that you can start seeing that there's a trajectory. It just happened.
Mm-hmm.
Like they dropped a bomb. Because in a way, they did. They took Mother Nature and they amplified it to destruct an area that they needed destroyed, because it's so much easier to build on vacant land.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Than to have to buy out every single person. Now, I watched a lot of TV when I was a kid. I had an older brother. I watched a lot of the things that he watched. And how many times did I see a greedy landlord burn down an apartment complex because they wanted to sell to a corporation that wanted to put up a mall?
Absolutely.
Or
That's happened to that the burning down didn't happen, but my girlfriend lives in Berkeley and she had like a rent, what do you call it? A rent stable housing where they can't really put the rent up, and she lived there
right.
for years. And so she was crying to me because she said, why is my place, I don't have anything really, she's pretty humble, simple. She doesn't have anything really to steal, but her place had repeatedly within a month been like burglarized, and they would just leave the doors open, just doing it over and over to cause like PTSD. And they didn't find the person, but she just told me she thinks it's her landlord because they're pissed because they want to make more money, and they can't do that
Yeah,
with them.
yeah. Well, they get money from the government from supplying, low income housing, and then they complain about it. It's like insurance companies, how many years did they take your money without having to do anything? And now that they have to pay out, they're leaving and they're
They're
canceling your.
dropping everybody. Like so many people are getting dropped. I've been hearing lately, and they're doing it with some bogus excuse. They bring a drone over to your house, and then they make up any excuse they want, and they don't even have to give a real explanation. But you have to question: are they in the know, and they know which areas that they're going to drop because it happens to be in certain areas, during certain times, and um,
Mhm.
and people are out without insurance, and then a quote unquote natural disaster happens. Wow, what a coincidence, is that something we should look into? Is that something, it's all very questionable.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, there are two movies that I would well, there are actually more that I suggest people revisit, but Avatar
Mhm.
is a very, very important one to go back with the knowledge that we have now and watch that, as well as Matt Damon movie called Elysium.
Mm,
And I think we look at these things with, I mean, there's also iRobot, all kinds of things that we need to start looking at with new eyes and
mhm.
ears, because there are messages for a reason in these movies. Creators have always used entertainment to get out thoughts that the mainstream narrative will not allow to get out.
It's so true. It's true. Well, yeah, it's true. There's a belief, I think, too, that everything needs to be informed. That way we had a choice. And if we had a choice, we could have said no, but we didn't, so therefore we're consenting.
Yeah, but I think, what I try to drive home with people is just be kind to yourself, allow yourself to change your mind with new information. We are these computers, and computers do change when they get new programs.
That's right.
And we're being shown, God is showing us the truth right now if we just open our eyes and want to see it. And we've got to be kind to each other. If people have done us wrong and they choose to apologize, we have to allow that to happen. I know it's hard. It's been very hard for me. I've gotten several apologies in the last year that I never thought were going to come because of names that I was called and the way people just like cut me out of their lives and disinvited me to things just because nothing changed about me, but I didn't agree. I didn't say, yeah, I'm 100% on board. Even if I just, like you said, questioned it, I became the nut job, the conspiracy theorist, the same person that they've known for 40 years.
Mm-hmm.
But we've really been controlled into where we are right now. And we're just like that sheep that the sheepdog is rounding up. And we're go little by little, we're going into those gates. And it's up to us if we let those gates be closed or not. And we're only going to keep those gates open by keeping our minds and our hearts open to those around us, to understand that who really is the bad guy. It's not the left, it's not the right, they're wings on the same bird. It is the person feeding that bird.
Mm-hmm.
So who are you feeding? What are you feeding? Are you feeding fear? Are you feeding love? And fear is not hearing that something is bad and agreeing with it. If it's bad, it's bad. Fear
Yeah, I
is
think
more
that's
the
important.
unknown. Pardon?
That's a very important point because when I was kind of sharing what's going on here, I was surprised with the feedback from a friend, and they snap and they're like, "Well," and I was not crying or bitching. I was just stating, I'm really surprised we haven't had any help cleaning up the rivers. Like I don't see anybody down here trying to clean up the rivers or do anything. And this is what's happening. And I said, and then they were like, well, what do you think is going to happen? And I was like, I don't know, but I do know that 15-minute cities has been put on the table, for Asheville. And there are quotes about it, with council members online, and they were like, well, I don't want to hear this. This is so negative. And I'm like, oh, I'm not trying to be negative. You asked me a question. I was just answering the question. There was no intention of being negative. I said, the truth is not negative. The truth is just the truth. And the
Mm-hmm.
possibilities of truth are just the possibilities of what the outcome could be based on what the council members have been actually stating with their own mouths, which are quotable. And it's not anything far-fetched. This is reality. A city council statement says we need to focus on how to connect our cities better to make it easier for people to walk and bike in the places they need to go, but that's in a reference to the 15-minute cities. Okay, so this is not just some fantasy. And just because we say things that don't feel good, it's not just like, oh, we're gonna rise into another dimension, and like we're just gonna ascend through this. We just don't look at what you don't want to see. Like turn your head, in manifesting and the spiritual communities, they often want you to just in a religion turn the other cheek, focus on only what you want to create. But like that's spiritually bypassing, but it's also bypassing, and eventually it's going to catch up to you if you just turn the other cheek. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
You're
well,
gonna
yeah.
be
And it
slapped.
does, God helps those that help themselves, sister.
Amen to that.
There is action behind prayer.
Yes,
There
true.
has to be action behind prayer, manifestation, whatever you do in your world. And that was the saddest thing for me, to see so many spiritual leaders that I had paid attention to in the past just kind of go crazy, kind of go off the walls. Well, God created the doctors and the doctors created the medicine and therefore it's good. Well,
Mhm.
actually, if you look up the word pharma, it's very dark. It does not mean that at all. And if you look up the history of medicine, you see the Rockefellers totally changing what we saw and did and felt. And yeah, some things, I think if I get in a car accident, I want to go to the ER. But other than that, keep me away from doctors. It is actually the third leading cause of death in the United States, going
Mm,
to see your doctor.
yeah.
And why would I do that? It just, it doesn't make any sense. But, you know, we have to keep some things in mind. Things like the World Economic Forum. I do suggest people go and look at their meetings because they're online and
Mhm.
listen to what they have to say and understand what it means when they say you will own nothing and be happy. Are they planning on owning nothing?
I doubt it.
Because if they're planning on owning nothing, I'll be right there with them.
We can all do this together.
Let's all be nothing together. Let's all own nothing because we literally really do own nothing. This we
Yeah.
don't own this planet. Nobody
Yeah.
owns this
Yeah.
land.
Exactly. Exactly. It's true.
Nobody owns the air. Nobody owns the water. They would love to own the air, but they just haven't figured out a way to do that yet.
I'm sure they'll
But
have oxygen bars that
they're
you have.
working on it. They're working on it. Go watch the cartoon, the newer cartoon, the Lorax.
Mhm. The Lorax. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Seuss, right? Is that Dr. Seuss?
The whole thing, it was actually a book written in the, I think, the late 50s
Mhm.
about environmentalism.
Yeah.
And the book
Yeah.
is a little bit different than the movie. But
Yeah.
basically the bad guy, little guy in the helicopters found a way to make people buy air. They've gotten rid of all the trees. And but they do have an electronic one. You can have winter, spring, summer, fall, or disco. And there's a little next door neighbor that loves trees and she paints trees and she wants to see a tree and the little boy's in love with her, so he goes looking for like what are these trees, and he meets the Lorax and he learns the story and the history as to why there are no trees, and he gets one seed from this guy that the Lorax sends him to, and then there's this debate as to whether they should plant it or let it die. And this was in the late 50s. We were having this discussion somewhere on the planet enough to have a book written.
Dr. Seuss was brilliant. I guess he saw ahead of his time. I think that book is so powerful. Haven't seen the film that came. Is it called the Lorax?
The Lorax, yeah. It's
Okay.
what Danny DeVito plays the Lorax.
Oh wow, I've got to see that because
He's the
I
voice.
mean remember the books and I think my dad shared the books with me and I just remember how it's pretty simple. It was pretty simple but pretty powerful. The message is there, like once we destroy this stuff, it's gonna be gone. It's
Yes,
and it's done in a way that's like people can't get outraged because everybody's outraged about everything. It's like, no,
right.
you're not being outraged about, maybe you should be outraged about what is truly behind it. We're only outraged at like the middleman, or the middle conversation, but we never get to the root. And people do not want to go past the barriers to get to the truth. For
Well, yeah, I do. Okay, who's pushing? We need to be unburdened by the past.
Mhm.
Okay, and we learn from the past. Those that do not learn from the past are destined to repeat it.
So true. So true.
So
So,
why would we want to be unburdened by the past? That's our soul's mission, is to learn from the past
yeah,
so that we can be better in the future.
exactly. I'm with you 100% because, just like in energy healing, we have to go to the past sometimes to retrieve stuff. We cannot move forward unless we do certain things go back to the past, retrieve, heal, forgive, whatever the thing is we need to do to rectify the past.
Oh,
It's a must, and we can't move forward. And even I found like, wow, there are pieces of the past that were in other places that I had to go, and retrieve because my soul fragment was there, because something, and also we have to learn the lesson. If we don't
Mhm,
learn the lesson, we repeat the lesson. This is, history
mhm.
repeats itself. And I think that is why history as we know it must be rewritten. I am an advocate of finding the truth about history because all history is bullshit. I mean, it's been written by the conquerors alone and their scribes. And so much of the truth has been burned with the witch hunts, the Alexandria Library. I mean, so much has been destroyed.
Well, we see it happen in real time. Um, you're the border czar. I'm the border czar. I'm not the border czar. I've never been the border czar. And then you see videos disappearing.
Mm-hmm.
That could prove, yes, you are the border czar. And
Mm-hmm.
we're seeing it happen so quickly now. And it cracks me up. I mean, if I was a comedian, there's just so many things I've been making jokes about right now because I mean, really, do these people not forget that we do have videotape now?
Yeah. Well,
Do they
they
not realize that there is nothing? I'm very cautious on what I say. And when I had my media company, I was very cautious every single word. When somebody asked me a question, I didn't answer it right away. I took the time to sit and think about what they were asking me and what was the best, clearest way to get my answer forward so that
Mhm.
there was no miscommunication. These people just say whatever and then go, I didn't say that.
Yeah.
And I think it's, it's the state of being a politician. Well, how do you know a politician's lying? Their mouth is moving.
Right.
I don't have any faith in any politician. I have faith in, I try, because it's certainly been shaken over the last 4 years.
Yeah.
I try to have
Understandably.
faith
Understandably
in
so.
humanity.
I have faith in the people being the ones to make the decisions. The people, I mean, the people are the one who showed up for each other when there was no water and people had to share, you know, provisions. It was the people who went and shared with their neighbors here.
Mm-hmm.
It was people that were able to dig others out of the ground or get them out. But that's what that's what happened when they were allowed to, you know,
Right.
because there was also a time where we weren't allowed to move around. Even when things came on, we weren't allowed to. We were blocked. There was blockages.
And how can people, what I don't understand is why weren't there more people to do it than there were people trying to stop it so that you push those people aside that are stopping you.
Mhm.
I'm sorry if my loved one is on the other side of your police car, I am going to find a way to get around that. And you are not going to stop me. And I will do whatever I have to do to get there. If I have to dig my way under your car, I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
And I think that they do it in these areas that are a little less populated because we then see it and then we go, oh, well, I could never help. They're not going to let us do it. But
Yeah.
if everyone in LA rallied against the people that were stopping this from happening in LA, do you think that it would have gone the same way? No. They do it in areas where they can show, they put on this production
Mhm.
and they can show, oh, you shouldn't be trying to do this because we're going to bring in the military. And let me
Mhm.
share something with you that I haven't shared with anybody. A friend of mine went to an LA city meeting, just a city meeting, and our governor, okay, allowed $2 million. I believe, don't quote me on that, but I believe it was $2 million to bring the uh, Israeli military here to Los Angeles to fight against anti-Semitism. Isn't it illegal for somebody else's military to do anything on our land?
Mm-hmm.
And that is city funds that come out of our taxes. He is also giving state funds. They just haven't come in yet. Now, I haven't seen any boots on the ground,
Mm-hmm.
but I know my friends that were there heard it. It was in the agenda. And you have to look at people need to get involved on a more local basis.
Yeah.
We need to go to the town hall meetings and
Mm-hmm.
we need to start calling them out there.
Mm.
Just like the parents are calling out the school boards.
Mm.
They bring in, I hear one side saying, oh, the other side wants to ban books. But have you read those books? Have
Mm-hmm.
you seen what's in those books?
Yeah. Oh,
Because parents can't even read them at the meetings because they're so perverse, but yet they're allowing them to stay in the libraries.
yeah. It's unreal. It's really, really. It's people. This is why it's so important to ask questions. You know, we have to start asking the right questions. Please do not think, this is going to go away by itself. It's only it may only intensify if we allow it. We are here. Um, we are the ones we've been waiting for. This is the truth. This is the truth, and we have to really be courageous. We can't wait for someone else to fight our battles or to save each other or to save ourselves. I have seen it firsthand, people.
Mm-hmm.
That the people that were stuck in bad situations, nobody came to save them. I saw people on the side of the road stranded in bad conditions. Nobody was coming to save them. It was only real people coming to save each other. It was only people for the people. And they shut down all the gas stations, everything. So I didn't have enough gas to go out again and do it. I had to wait till I knew
Mm-hmm.
things turned on because I was going to be stranded myself. So I wanted to go out and see if I could help anybody or see what was going on. And I was stopped. I had to turn around and I was looking for another, it just
Yeah.
it's hard to explain the knowing in your heart and soul. And I'm sure many people would disagree and say, no, I don't know what you're talking about. But I know what I'm talking about because I
Right
experienced.
there.
You cannot
Yeah.
tell me what I experienced isn't true when I experienced it and saw it.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. Yeah. But hey, let's chirp. Let's go twerk.
Mm.
Let's dance. Let's be joyful. I mean, I don't, yes, you have to find joy and beauty every day. You have to do that to uplift your soul.
Hmm. I
But
agree. That is
that
important.
does not mean that you ignore the atrocities and the horrors of what's going on around you and how people are being treated and who's being lifted up and who isn't.
Yes.
Who's given the time on the news? Who are we
Yeah.
celebrating? What are we celebrating? Are we celebrating people coming together and helping each other against all odds? Or are we celebrating people running naked down the street with flags?
Hmm. I know. I mean, it's very biased, and until yeah, it's very biased. So we're gonna have to use our critical thinking, it's okay, it's safe to use it. I know that we've been entrained because it's generational to the fear because the fear actually they've done statistics on mice, studies on mice. Like if they train the mice every time they leave the cage, it will be electrocuted every single time. It will just never, and then they turn off that machine and they just open the cage.
Mhm.
The mouse would not dare to come out. It just stop. It just
Yeah.
give up. And
Mhm.
then the mice has babies.
And the
And
babies do the same thing.
same thing, the cage is open. The door is open. The mouse would not dare, doesn't even try. And that
Mhm.
we are genetically create, we have genetics of war inside of us, you guys. We have DNA that's already been imprinted upon. trained and trained, okay? We've already entrained, just like at one point dogs were wild animal, wild beasts, and now they're entrained to just bow to their masters.
Yes, no,
So
they're chihuahuas.
yeah, so you know, we gotta have some critical thinking, and it's gonna take a little bit of courage to step out and think for yourself and to ask
Mm,
questions. Asking questions, be bold. If people scoff at you, so what? Who cares what
exactly.
they think? If you're in an emergency, if you're in a quote unquote natural disaster, who cares what they think in these situations? They're going to be the people hiding under the blankets. They're not going to help you. Trust me.
Yeah. Yeah.
The people
If
with
I'm
the
in a tree, I'm not going to ask somebody their gender, their sex,
yeah.
their family's background, whether they're a Democrat or Republican. I'm just going to say, get me the heck out of the tree.
Yeah, exactly. And the people with the PhDs probably aren't. And that's, it's the ones that are like, there's something to be said about also simplicity. You try to complicate the mind with so much dogma and you become crazy. That's why a lot of people, the people giving the medications probably need it more than anybody. So
Oh, yeah. Most therapists get into therapy because they need therapy.
yeah,
I
exactly.
mean, that is a fact.
Hmm.
They're some of the most, I was in a community of hypnotherapists, and I'm just like, oh, dear Lord, really? Have you seen yourself? But
I know what you're saying. It's a dogma. It's because they're projecting it out and they don't actually want to do the inner work to process through the pain because it's painful. That means you have to feel and be in touch with your own emotions. But
yeah.
instead, you'd rather just tell somebody, you just like rather diagnose everyone else so you can get off the hook. There's a lot of narcissism going on in every single industry. And
Mhm.
that's why we must learn how to have an inner navigation, like trusting ourselves, coming back. We've also been entrained to not trust ourselves, you guys. I know this. I I
Mm.
I was also entrained not to trust myself from an early age. And it really caused a lot of havoc. I was making left when I should turn right because that the wiring I was rewired, it's an inversion tactic of
Oh, yeah.
rewiring.
Can I share something with you?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
At one time I worked at a party planning store, and we had our office in the back where we did all of the event planning. But the front of the store had, like, if you had a kids party, it had all of the cups and plates and everything. If you had a princess party or whatever, so we had a lot of parents coming in, and this one mom came in with her son, and it was like, do you want the red ball or the blue ball? And the child said, one of them, and the parent said, oh no, you want the other one. And I couldn't stand that. I said, do you understand what you are doing to this child's self-worth when you give them a choice and then tell them that their choice is bad?
Hmm.
And I never did that with raising my son. If I was going to give him a choice, I was going to follow through with what he said. If I didn't want to give him a choice, I'd just say, here's the blue one. And as parents, we don't realize what we're doing, or as aunts and uncles or babysitters, that at a very young age, we are teaching each other, like you just said, to not trust ourselves. We
Yeah.
can't trust ourselves. We have to trust the priest. We
Mm.
can't have our own feeling of God, our own connection. That priest has to tell us how we should feel, how
Yeah.
we should interpret the Bible or any other kind of scripture. Our
Mm.
teachers tell us how to interpret history,
Mm.
right? I mean, everywhere we're being told how to interpret things.
Absolutely.
And
School.
how can we be a whole person?
Hmm. Yeah, how? Because also, if you ask questions in school, you also you kind of get in trouble. I remember getting in trouble for asking questions. I would get always in trouble. So I just stopped talking. I just stopped I stopped
Yeah.
caring. I just did not care. Why should I care? I knew I was already questioning stuff, and I was like, wait a minute, I need to ask a question. And they're like, they would just get angry and punish you, sent to the principal's office. Um, you-
Yeah.
you're
Well,
entrained to not do not question authority at a very early age.
right. Well, get this. This will crack you up. My dad was a printer. He was a typesetter. And his company did the Encyclopedia Britannica. And so we would get like
Wow,
every time a
that's
new
kind of
edition.
cool.
Yeah, so we would get the every edition and the new editions as they came out, right?
Mhm.
So I would have a project to write a report and I would write it from the encyclopedia and I would get D's, misinformation, right?
Mhm.
And I would have to bring the encyclopedia in to show the teacher that what I was writing was current information. And I would still get the D because I wasn't writing it on the books that they had.
Hmm.
So even though it was true,
Yeah.
kind of like malinformation, what we're going through right now, even though it was true, I was downgraded because it wasn't what they were teaching.
Wow.
I'm
Isn't that
65 years old. That was a long time ago.
That's really something.
So
That's really something.
this brainwashing and this compliancy has been going on for a long time. Our school system was actually created by a German man who was asked to create a system so that we would have children that would start
Mm.
on a bell, and do busy work in between for the
Mhm.
industrial revolution.
Yeah,
And that's exactly what we have.
man, it's like it's amazing. It's amazing. Amazing how this all happened. I think we are going to I really truly believe we're going to be re-educated in the future if we stand up and start asking questions now, and we can decide as a collective that we're not interested in being abused anymore, and that we're tired of being experiments, and
Mhm.
we do have to be courageous enough. It's very, very fun and exciting to look at the new shiny object syndrome, which we've all been trained to have as well. That's all, and that's what I was referring to for the TikTok kind of, and there's nothing wrong with TikTok. There's a lot of people on TikTok that do great thing. It's how you use something, but I'm just talking about like everybody, including like the nurses, when they should be, helping people, they're doing dance videos, the doctors, like,
Yeah, wait, no, wait a minute. There's a big question mark there.
uh-huh.
If you have people lined up dying in rows inside the hospital, I was a
How
dancer. Where do you have time to teach someone that choreography? And
exactly?
I that blew my mind. That was like, okay,
That
this
was
is funny.
unbelievable. I was like, they're doing like they're like putting out like 3 videos a day out, like what is going on? Like what kind of party's happening here? And I thought you guys were having the hardest time.
I actually went to my local hospitals. I'm in an area where there were probably 4 or 5 different hospitals around me. I went into the emergency rooms. I called BS because no, there weren't in there. There were no cars in the parking lot. There were no people in the tents. I actually followed an ambulance because I was going the same direction, but I was behind the ambulance that had its siren on, saw it pull into the emergency section of the hospital and sit there, turn off the lights, go talk to the nurses who are all standing at tents, and 2 of them were smoking cigarettes.
Well, yeah. Yes, yes, yes. That is I know that's true because I was in the Philippines during the lockdown. I was locked down in the Philippines, and
Oh my.
had I had I was having an issue. I had to go to the emergency, and I went in, and I was in the whole hospital. I had to walk around to different places. I had to go here, I had to go there, I had to go, then I had to go pay. I went to 3 different, I don't know exactly what they were, but 3 different areas. And I walked all around the hospital, okay? And let me tell you, that place was empty. empty, empty, empty. I should have done a video about it, but I was like, what is going on? This is when we weren't allowed to leave the house. I I mean, there were no words. And
Mm,
they were pushing everybody to do the thing. The thing,
hmm
you couldn't leave the house unless you did the thing. And I didn't do the thing. So it was I mean, I was allowed in the emergency because of the situation, but there was nobody in the I looked I was in going into different I don't know why they were sending me around. Don't ask me why. But I went to different rooms and I had to wait in certain rooms and anyhow, they were empty. And
Yeah.
there were lots of beds open. Like, let me just tell you. I mean, I
Well,
saw
they,
the beds.
yeah, but people don't understand when they said we don't have the beds. They furloughed a lot of doctors and nurses prior to that. A lot of hospitals were shutting down because a lot of people were not going to the MDs anymore. They're starting to realize that their health is much better if they do different things. And so a lot of hospitals, if you have to have a certain amount of nurses per patient, and if you don't, you have to shut down that floor. So floors were shut down, so
Mm-hmm.
there weren't beds available. But
Mm-hmm.
that doesn't mean that the hospital was full of people because that just was not true. And again, how do you have the time to learn a dance routine when you're not a dancer?
Yeah.
It's going to take longer, right? And be able to push these things out. And we saw actors that got tired of this BS showing their contracts, aiming their cameras towards the camera crew, and being told that their script was that they were so sad that they didn't get the thing.
Uh-huh.
And that's why they're in the hospital. I don't know anybody that got sick that did not get the thing.
Mm-hmm.
I know a lot of people that died from the thing.
Mm-hmm.
I know a lot of people that will never be the same medically because they got the thing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know anybody that died because they did not get the thing.
Yeah.
And I live in one of the largest cities in the world.
Yeah, that's right. Mm-hmm.
How does that happen?
Oh,
Somebody, I got the question for you, Lucy.
yeah.
Something not right here. Okay. And that's what blew my mind because these dots were so obvious to me. The 6 feet away. Are you kidding me? A virus is dead. A virus is part of your immune system. Once it leaves your body, it's dead. It's not hanging out on the counter. It's not. Oh, and this was the craziest part to me. If you're standing in line to get into a restaurant, you have to wear a suffocation device. But once you sit down, that virus knows you're eating and will not bother you.
It's the same at the airports. Like, what the heck? We have to stand 6 feet away, but then we go on the plane and we're just breathing each other's air. I mean, like
Hello?
I was like, okay, I was like, wow, I know people are smarter than this. I know they are, aren't they? I mean, it's just called common sense. Like it's not like it's comical, but you got it. But then like they'd be like, step back, you're too close, you know. I'm like, you gotta be kidding. And here I am slumped 2 inches from somebody for 12 hours on a plane, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like, wow, that's really crazy. And it's funny. And you know what's so funny? I just have to laugh because at least we could laugh before we end this. But like everybody built outside, outdoor seating. But what they
Right.
did, they put a plastic vent over. So we're inside the plastic right now, but it's safe because it's outside in the plastic and we're sitting next to each other and
I
it's all zipped up.
Yeah, yeah. And hey, by the way, those, ecology minded people, we just got, rid of plastic straws and we're getting rid of plastic and now everything, including people, are wrapped in plastic.
It's so sad that it's like you can't help but laugh because it makes no sense. Like, how do we add this up, people? How do we add this up? You know,
Yes, help me make sense.
yeah,
Do
help.
the math. Do the math.
it's just like wow. And to think that everybody was like, that's cool. Psychologists are now they're eating out and doing the same thing, psychologists and all the people that are so smart, the doctors, but that you can't be around anybody. But then you can go to a restaurant and wait 6 feet apart, in line to get in. But then you get in and you're all zipped up, cozy together without masks. Like, I thought you guys are so smart. Nobody.
I would go, I shop at Trader Joe's a lot. And the poor people, all have their suffocation device on. And they would be like ready to pass out. And I would say, maybe you might want to stop inhaling your CO2 and your bacteria and viruses and stop touching your face.
Mhm.
Maybe it's that. And they would look at me like I was talking gibberish.
Wow, you're crazy.
I'm the crazy one. I'm like, yeah, okay. Do you know where I've been today? Because I never bought into that. And I actually went up to the Capitol during the lockdown. And so did a lot of other people. And um, it didn't, nothing made sense from life experience. And we need to start remembering our life experiences. But if you got the thing, that's going to be harder and harder. And if you keep getting the thing, it's going to be impossible because it actually affects your memory so that
Mhm.
we can all be unburdened by the past.
Mm.
It affects your memory. Um, Things that shouldn't cross the blood-brain barrier cross the blood-brain barrier.
Mm.
And when you're in fight or flight, you're in fear mode to begin with. You can't think rationally.
Yeah.
And we have to focus on the fact that we can come together. We can help each other. We can reach out and say, Radhaa, what do you need? What can the people listening do to help your community right now? What can really be done? Anything?
We need people here. What we could do is get all of these, how many immigrants do we have? Did we let in? Take those immigrants and have them come help clean this place up. You know,
What a
we need
concept.
we need help. We need help on the ground. We need people supervision so that because there's a lot of tools that are needed. You have to get all dead debris, the debris, the houses, the materials that are all over. We need that cleaned out. We need it pulled out of the river. We need more feet on the ground here, but we need tools. We don't have the tools to do this. I can't do it. I can't just. I don't even have a place. Like, there's no way I could possibly do it. You have to have tools to do what is needed here. So we're needing more help. We need help. And I know that there is now that just recently some military came in downtown. I don't know what they're doing because I'm not allowed to go down there. So I haven't seen anybody by the rivers. And so there's a lot that needs to be done. I don't know what they're doing in the town. Um, Supposedly they're doing some good work, so that would be great, but it's all blocked off, so there's no way to actually look and see. Um,
So, is there any organization that you trust that, let's say, I had a tractor and that's what you needed, could help me get that to you?
no, I don't have anybody like that here, and I also don't know how to run that machinery.
Yeah.
That's the thing is like it's also I think it would be illegal because these are off of the roads. Like this is I don't know if there's like regulations or whatnot, but they haven't, they don't want us messing with stuff on the side of the road. Like that's not it's not, I don't know if we'd be allowed to. If we just came in with a trailer and started moving trucks and, moving stuff around, we probably get arrested. I'm just saying, like you probably have to have permits or something. So we need more support. We need clearance too to do this.
Mhm.
So I don't know what the protocols is because I've never been in a quote unquote natural disaster like this before. This is my
Yeah.
first experience, first time. All I know is there's a lot, there's a lot of just like just go home, don't, so I don't know.
Do you have any local representatives that you trust that someone could get in touch with to see what could be done? Because I'd rather focus on what can be done than,
Yeah,
you know,
exactly. Um, I don't know anybody by chance. Like I don't know who to reach out to. I mean, I could contact the mayor, but like that's my I don't know. I just wanted to state that I'm at a certain level of frustration at the moment because we've had damage here with like the studio being destroyed, and I have reached out to the sheriff's department. I have called probably a dozen times and nobody's answering. I left messages. I called the police department and they told me we can't help you. I mean, we can't. Prior to this, I called them just because I needed to talk to somebody to see what's going on. And so, I mean, the non-emergency. And they were like, we can't help you with it. We can't serve you. We don't serve you. um you need to call the sheriff's department. So I said okay. I called the sheriff's department so many times and they are not answering, and this is for a few matters that I don't wish to discuss on this podcast, but just to let you know that they've made themselves unavailable. So when you ask, like, how could we help? Who can you call? Well, I'm calling the sheriff's department. I can't get help. So yeah,
yeah.
we can call the higher ups, but when you really understand that it's a pyramid scheme and at the lower levels of the sheriffs, they're refusing to take calls.
Your tax money at work, babe.
Mm-hmm. And just like the example I gave earlier with the fire department that refused to save somebody. So when we say, well, who can we call? I don't know because it looks to me like they aren't willing to help. So if you've got any great ideas, please do let me know. And I'm sure some of you listening will be like, well, why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? Well, if you can't even count on your basic sheriff, your basic um firemen to save people's lives when they're hanging by a tree, I'm sorry if I've lost some faith in my governments,
Mhm.
I have. I've lost total faith. I have no faith. Zero, zip, zilch, none, nada, nada. So
Yeah.
who do I call? I'm calling to the creator. I'm calling out to the divine to please come and like, you know, tell me what to do next because I want to be of service. And again, like there are good people. They're not really they're not here in Marshall because we're on the outskirts. We're the forgotten nobodies out here. We're the
Mhm.
hillbillies that are left to die. But in Asheville, they on their boots organizations like Beloved Asheville, which are handing out food and water. But though that is a organization, that's not the government. And
Mhm.
most everything that has been handed out to people has been from organizations and
Mhm.
nonprofit organizations, not the government. I repeat. So when we want to go to call, it's hard to call them when they're in on it. And I'm not saying they are, but we should
Yeah.
question that. We should question
Right.
we and in many ways, yes, they are in on it because if you look at the White House press release statement, they're not lying that they're not in on the mining of this area. Like I almost want to stop myself, but then I go, wait a minute. They just issued $120 billion to harvest these lithium here,
Mhm.
and amongst other areas. But this is one of the biggest areas that they have their eyes and their money and their investments set on.
Yep.
Okay. So yeah, the government is in on it in the sense that they are taking advantage of people in crisis. They're like the vultures that are just waiting for people to not make their mortgage payment so they can snatch up that property.
Oh
Okay.
yeah. Yeah, and if you don't have a family that lives there to prove that they own that property, if a family is ended,
Mhm.
unalived, as they say now, like in Maui, then there's no one to claim that property and the government can just come in. But we have the pharmaceutical industry, 3 to 4 lobbyists per congressperson. We've got Raytheon, Boeing, Lockheed Martin spending billions to reelect congresspeople who serve on committees that determine the military funding. You have these, I've sat in front of Monsanto lobbyists and seen what they've done in a local Los Angeles community meeting when we tried to make LA a GMO free zone, and
Mhm.
tried to explain to the finance committee how that would help bring money, because companies that make food could say, grown in Los Angeles, from
Mhm.
Los Angeles, a GMO free zone, and saw the person behind me giving the finger across the neck to the Congress people, and saw what ensued after that. And it is mind blowing. And
You
we
want to
can't even
share
trust
what it is?
these nonprofits, because a lot of them are actually fractions of big corporations.
Yeah.
And there are websites that you can look up to see how much money a nonprofit brings in and how much it actually spends on what they're supposed to be spending it on. I think that will blow a lot of people's minds. And just like we're doing right now, we're reaching out, we're saying, what do you need? You might not have an answer right now, but, you know, 2 weeks from now, you might say, hey, I can't get socks. Can someone send me socks? Right? The very little things are going to be the things that matter. And even just staying connected and telling people, we hear you, we see you, we love you. You're not alone.
Yeah. That matters a lot. And it matters too that people listen to this because, it's important to listen to different perspectives. Don't just listen to the one narrative. There are legitimate concerns, and I am extremely concerned because this happened. And yes, the water is destroyed. Yeah, we can't drink that water. And I am concerned that this is going to escalate. And that in a few years, we'll say, what the happened?
Yeah.
Why didn't we stand up when we could have? Why didn't we friggin' see? Why didn't we see this? All the
Mhm.
clues were there. I mean, the government wasn't hiding the fact that they're spending 120 billion on focusing on these mountains as one of the main sources of lithium, you
Well,
know.
the joke is kind of on them, Rhoda, in the way that, and I think this is God's hand. They are creating things to happen that are bringing up people's awareness.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody knew that there was a whole lot of lithium. Most people
I
don't
had
know
no
lithium.
idea. No idea. I didn't know
Yeah.
until this.
And most people don't know that you need lithium for your cell phone and your laptop and your computer and your car.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, and your smartwatch, which is
Uh,
giving you cancer, by the way. But anyway, I digress. I I don't, it's the whole thing. If it hasn't happened to me
mhm.
yet, it
Yeah,
doesn't exist.
exactly. So you guys can all pretend like it's all good, go move on to the next thing. But, the next thing might be in your area. So
Oh,
you
it will
maybe
be.
you
It will be, because
Mhm.
we all have things that they either want or they don't want us to have. It's in
I
every single community. So people need to wake up. It's just a matter of time.
yeah. Yeah, and so one question I would ask because I've heard this so many times lately from the spiritual community, like There is no such thing as evil. That's just a projection of yourself, you know? Like evil doesn't exist outside of yourself. Like it or something of that nature, like some hokey pokey kind of like you just got to do the inner work. And what? It's just going to disappear?
And that's the convoluting of spiritual thought, and it's it's because we haven't been taught so much of our history and who we are. And you and I, we've done the deep work and deep dives, and you've changed my life with work that I've done with you. And um, it's scary to see your shadow self and to understand that we're not all pure love and light all the time. There are people I would love to have my hands around their neck at times, but I'm a civilized human being and I'm not going to do that. But that doesn't mean I don't think, you say one more word and I'm just going to hit you, you know. But the reality is it's all frequency, and I always say I don't believe in the devil as a solid being.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Yeah.
don't have to understand what it means, because I believe that there are people that believe that
Mm-hmm.
and will do the necessary things to do what they believe brings the power to themselves. So whether there's a man with horns underground or not is irrelevant. There are enough people that believe that if they kill and maim and hurt people, they're gonna, reap the rewards,
Mm-hmm.
to
Correct.
believe in that negative frequency or that negative energy, and not to just play it off like, oh, they don't exist. There are people here that do things. There are people here that drink blood. There are people here that believe that if you terrorize that person before you kill them, you get the adrenochrome. And this has been happening for a long time. If you want to go deep enough, you can look at the market. You can buy this stuff. This is creepy. It doesn't have to be a double making them do it. It's just people that are greedy, that have lost their God self, that
Mm-hmm.
have been told they're not worthy. So if you're not worthy, then why? And it's so much easier to be evil and dark
Yeah.
than it is
Right.
to be good. It's so much easier. This is what we've been taught.
If you're
Look at
not
what's happening
worthy.
in the entertainment business right now.
Yeah.
Something that we were both very involved in.
Yep.
Did we know that people were being molested? I know every time I went on a modeling call, make love to the camera. Oh, unbutton that button. Let me see some shoulder. This is how it starts. It seems very innocent, but when you've got young people that just want to make it big and make the money because they're told that's what they have to do to make it in this world,
Mm-hmm.
they're going to want to seem more mature. They're going to give in and they're going to do these things. It doesn't make them bad people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, it does
And
also I think that we need to understand that this is a culture. And that is one of the reasons why I left, because we were indoctrinated to think this is how it is. You are very lucky to be here. And it's very clear if you want to move forward and you want this position that is being dangled in front of you, yeah. I mean, there's no other way to say it. I've been told that there's only one way, and if you don't do it this way, you're gonna be out. There's no other way. So that's why I had to creep out, but there's also, you have to understand, everyone around you has that mentality. It is enforced at every single, like, even after what happened with women standing up for that short bit with Harvey. I mean, look, he's out again. That's number one. Number two, nobody made a peep about it again. And the truth is, nobody ever really disclosed the fullness of it. It was only just to make people satisfied and happy, so that people would shut up. Okay, we've done that. We're all free now, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, they talk about Ghislaine Maxwell, but let me ask you this. Was it a civil trial or a criminal trial?
Hmm.
Look it up. because it was a civil trial. People don't go to jail on a civil trial. She's Lady Ghislaine Maxwell. Lady, which means she
can you
has
share?
diplomatic immunity. Just,
Wow.
you know, it's like, it's very, very interesting. And, you know, if you say that you agree with one thing, then all of a sudden you're in with 80 billion other things. You know, if you agree that there's geoengineering, then you also believe the world is flat. No, that's not humanity.
Mm-hmm.
This is not a blanket statement. And
Mm-hmm.
they know that, and that's how they're using that fact that they know that we're not like that to keep constantly dividing. Whenever we start to get together on one thing, then they have to divide.
Yeah.
So we
And they
all
do
got together on women's rights. Now they had to throw in trans rights, which actually eliminates
it.
some of our rights as women,
Mhm.
doesn't it?
Mhm. Yep. You can, I mean, in the sports, it's like, you got to be kidding me. Like, this is the fact that people are standing for this is unbelievable. That they are saying that it's okay for biological male to knock the lights out and fracture the skull of a woman, a man. This is that's abuse.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Where's women's rights? Where's you know, being someone that came onto this planet during the time where women were burning their bra. I was born in 1959, so I'm kind of stuck in the old world and the new world, right?
Mm.
You know, I learned how to sew and crochet and mend socks and cook and do laundry, you know, do all that the you know the woman was supposed to do. But at the same time, I was supposed to burn my bra, go out and make a living, and do everything that a man could do,
Mm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And in that, we lose the fact that, yeah, we're all very capable human beings, but we do look for people that fill in the gap,
Yeah. I mean, that's
you
part of
know, and
it,
that's
right?
for a reason. It's, you know, we talked about, you know, I talked about in my writings in the um the goddess book. I
Mm-hmm.
talk about being, you know, the puzzle, bringing all the pieces of the puzzle
Mm-hmm.
together. And we need each
Exactly.
other.
Yes.
We need we need every single thought that we have and put it into the pot, because if you have a recipe, it's not one ingredient. That's not recipe. A recipe is many different ingredients, many different flavors, textures coming together to make something that's really beautiful.
Yes, we
And if
do.
you leave something out, it's just not the same.
It's true. That's why we shouldn't shut people down from asking questions. It is not a crime to ask a question, people. Please know your worth. You are worthy and deserving of asking questions, of digging deeper, of looking for the truth behind, you are allowed to look. You're allowed to look for yourself, because if you don't, there are consequences. There are consequences.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I
Yep.
have to say is there are, and the consequences will come shortly. And we pay. We pay in consequences when we don't ask the great questions, when we just submit, throw ourselves into submission. We're going to pay the price. It seemed easy because we don't want problems, right? We don't want to be trouble. We don't want to be called crazy. We don't want to be troublemakers. We don't want to be seen as difficult, because nobody likes difficult people. But why is it difficult to ask a question? Why is it difficult to answer a question? How is that difficult? Could you tell me, if you have all the science and all the facts, can't you answer a question? And if we're not satisfied with that answer, can't we ask more questions to get more information? We have the right.
Right. And when I'm teaching, if I'm standing on my truth and I believe what I know, and I'm trying to teach you that, I want you to ask me as many questions as possible, because I want you to understand. When I was teaching raw food and I would teach someone how to make almond milk, right? It was like, well, you're soaking the almonds. It's not just soak your almonds. We soak the almonds because there's an element on the almonds that Mother Nature put there that does not allow that seed to germinate out of season. So only when it is wet and
Mm,
that comes off can that seed germinate. This is why we do that, because that thing that is on there is an enzyme inhibitor. So
mm,
when you eat that almond that still has that on it, your body cannot break down the proteins, which is why you're eating that almond, to get the protein.
mm-hmm,
So
mm-hmm.
ask me why, ask me when, ask me how. That's what a good teacher does. A good
Yes,
teacher
yes.
will have the information so that you have a full understanding and can then make your own decision if you want to soak your nuts or not. These nuts.
I love it. Yes, yes, yes. Yes, sister. I am so happy to chat with you today. I'm so grateful we could come together. I mean, you are such a wealth of wisdom, and I love your heart and your passion for humanity. You've got it. You know what I'm saying? You really, really do. And you stand on business. Like you are one of the strongest women I know, and I just adore you. I
Oh,
thank you so much for coming on today. I
my
feel
pleasure, honey.
privileged to have you on this podcast and share information. And I actually would love for you to come back again, and there's so many things I want to talk to you about, such as health. I'm really trying to figure it all out with the eating, because it's a whole, every other week they're telling us, don't eat this, eat this. This is toxic. You're gonna die from eating, spinach now. Now spinach is gonna destroy you. And so like I
Well, yeah, well, maybe they should stop putting that to plants because that's what Bill Gates is up to right now.
you mean the V.
Yeah, it's many conversations, girlfriend. And I think having these conversations one on one in 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 a friendly mode with no need to attack or we don't necessarily totally agree on everything.
Yeah,
Um
absolutely.
and hey, that's okay. I love you. I love your light. I know into the core who you are and what you stand for and your love for humanity and for animals and for the planet and but in a way that serves everybody and not just the people making profit. And God bless you. You are such a gift to this world.
Oh, thank you, sister. And I really appreciate that. And I love what you said, that we don't have to agree on anything. I think it's like we need to just know, like, we know who people are at the core. And, we can have conversations and we don't have to hurt each other, like, by cutting each other off or any other way. Like we can be civil, and we can actually learn from each other. So I'm always open to learning. I always want to learn. I never want to say that I know it all, because I certainly do not. I just love to learn, and I'm willing to learn, and that's what this conversation is all about. So again, thank you for coming on today, and sending you all the love, sending love to everybody listening. You are so worthy. You are so deserving of living a happy, healthy life, and having the basic necessities, and even thriving and being healthy and being joyful. You're worthy of it all. So please never be afraid to ask the questions that need to be asked, and have the courage in your heart to keep shining and sharing and asking. Until next time, much love and blessings. Bye for now.